And I think that's an important point because, again, people, when they're looking at the colleges, they might be tempted just to look at, especially for the older colleges, just to look at the sort of original site of the college that's, as you say, right close to the centre and often, relatively small. But the colleges usually have much larger sites that are really close, like 6-7 minute walk away, or a sort of most a sort of 10-minute bike ride away, and that's when they have all their sports facilities and things like that. So make sure you're sort of fully aware of all the sites that any given college has, because it may be that most of the accommodation is really close to where your lectures will be, even though the really old part of the college on the other side is not quite as close.
Hello everyone, welcome to Cambridge from the Inside. We're here with...
I'm Marcus, Marcus Tomlin. I'm the Director of Admissions here at Trinity Hall.
Nice. It's because you're not a new guest and you didn't like it when I said you're an old guest.
How about returning guest?
Yeah, I mean...
There you go. I think that's good. Let's go with that. An old returning guest.
Anyways, we're here to be talking about choosing a college, a really common issue and dilemma prospective students have every year. They want to apply to Oxford or Cambridge. They realise that the universities are made up of a lot of colleges and they have to choose which one. Well, they don't have to choose, but a lot of students want to see the colleges and choose one, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So before going into that, can you explain, Marcus, what colleges are for anyone who doesn't know?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're a student at Cambridge, the college is the place where you're based during the time that you're a student. So you'll have a room there. It's where you'll eat the majority of your meals. It may well be where you do some of your sort of recreational things. You might play on a college sports team, or you might be involved in sort of musical things at the college, whatever you're interested in. So it's kind of your sort of social base. But there is also an element of it that's focused on your academic work, because all the students who study at Cambridge, regardless of which course they're studying, have what's called a director of studies. And that's an academic who helps them and advises them as they go through the course. And usually, not always, but usually a student's director of studies is based at their college. It is possible to have a director of studies who's based at another college. That's not uncommon, but in the majority of cases, your director of studies will be based at your college. So that's the kind of thing that the colleges provide. As I say, it's mainly a social base, but there is a sort of academic element in that. Some of the guidance that you get about your progression through the course will come from people who are based at your college.
Okay, nice. So to make it like really clear for the people who are watching, say like I'm enrolled in a university that has no colleges and it's just a university, and I'm enrolled in Cambridge, and I'm associated with a specific college. What are the differences between those two institutions?
I think the differences are mainly that at a university that doesn't have a collegiate system, you might live in, say, a hall of residence or something like that, or you might have to sort of rent a room in a house in the private sector. You'd still go to lectures and things, and of course we offer lectures here and stuff like that. But your sort of social group would kind of emerge a bit more based on, I guess, the clubs and societies and things that you joined, because in the lectures for your subject, you'd meet other people that were studying that subject. But then if you wanted to come into contact with people who weren't just studying the same subject as you, you'd do that through joining particular clubs and societies. And of course, you can do all of those things here at Cambridge, but because you'd be based at a particular college, that automatically gives you a sort of relatively sort of small community that you can quite quickly become part of. You can quite easily make friends with people who are studying a wide range of other subjects, not just the same subject as you. So it's a sort of community within a community, because the whole university here at Cambridge is one massive community, but the colleges make it a little bit easier to find your kind of place as a student, and I think that can be a little bit more difficult at a university that doesn't have a collegiate system.
And just to be clear, Trinity Hall is one of the 29 colleges that make up University of Cambridge, and the colleges they're not just theoretical; they're like big land spaces of buildings that take up different parts of the city. If you walk around Cambridge, you're very likely to be walking past multiple colleges. And I think it's fair to say, as Marcus put it, there's just like any other university, a lot of university-wide societies and university sports for any student from any college to get involved in. But and the subjects are taught through the departments. So if you're studying English in Trinity Hall, you're still studying the same English course if you're studying it at Pembroke, let's say.
Exactly. And crucially, all the lectures and things like that are centralised. So as you say, if you're studying, the same course at College X or College Y, you go to exactly the same lectures, and most crucially, you take exactly the same exams. So all the exams are centralized. So again, sometimes when people are trying to figure out how a collegiate university like Cambridge works, they say, well, it must really matter which college I apply to, because that means I'm likely to take different exams. No, if you're at College X or College Y, you take exactly the same exams if you're studying the same subject. So yeah, there's a huge amount of kind of centralized teaching. The majority of the core teaching is centralized. The differences that I mentioned earlier about having a director of studies based at your college, that doesn't mean you take different exams or anything. It just means that, it'll be, that'll be the person who sort of guides you through the course and helps you make decisions about which optional papers you might pick and stuff like that.
Nice. I think a clear way to think of it is, no matter what college you're in, you'd be able to use the university-based facilities and societies, but more often than not, if you're in one college, you're unlikely to be able to use the facilities from another college. So each college has their own library. You won't have access to another library in another college unless you were to go with a friend from that college. Similarly with your catered foods will be in your specific college, and you'd be a guest to eat at another college. Your accommodation, if you your accommodation that you have access to will be specific to the college that you go to. You won't be able to have accommodation from a different college if you're in one college, and specifically in terms of where your supervisions are and kind of a lot of things and your accommodation, you'll be going into a specific accommodation set, a specific college, rather than regularly going into another college, which I think is it's a really, if you are able to, a really good opportunity to come to an open day and have a look around all of the colleges and just see which one you can see yourself living in.
And if people don't know, every year we have big open days in July in particular, and we have other ones at other times of the year, but particularly it's the big July open days when all the colleges are open, all the faculties and departments are open. People are able to come along, have a look at any college or any faculty or department that they want to look at, can talk to people there. If they've got any particular questions about the admissions process that are very specific to their case, we can answer those questions, and it gives people a chance to sort of compare and contrast some of the things we've been mentioning about, to get a sense as to whether one of the colleges strikes them as being particularly nice from their perspective. So yeah, open days can be a good way of
Yep.
doing that. We appreciate not everyone's able to come to Cambridge for the open days. I mean, for some people that's a really long journey and maybe quite an expensive journey. But that's why in recent years, so many of the colleges have made available virtual tours
Yep.
and things like that. So for this college, Trinity Hall, we have full virtual tours of our 3 sites. So we have 3 sites. There's this site that we're based at now, central site, but then we have accommodation sites sort of at 2 other points in the city. And you can tour all of those. You can look at the sort of kitchens that are provided, sort of bedrooms that are provided, all the sports facilities. And those tours were recorded using the same technology as Google Street View. So you can just wander around them using the arrow keys, literally walk through the court outside here and go up staircases and look at student rooms. And it's the next best thing to actually visiting the college in person.
Nice. And we'll put a link for the virtual tour for Trinity Hall in the caption. It is a really good way to have a look around the college and what the rooms are like if you aren't able to have a visit. And especially if you're quite keen to know what your student accommodation will be like, you can look at that through the virtual tour for what Trinity Hall provides in our free sites.
And we purposely included some rooms that were, when we filmed it, were being lived in by students. So you can see what it looks like when a student sort of, put in, I don't know, the pillows that they want or any sort of decorations that they want. But then we also recorded some rooms that are as they would be when the student arrives. So you can see you've got a bed, you've got a desk, you've got a light, you've got all the essential things, but then you've got space for books and, whatever else. And you've got like a little like cork board so you can pin up pictures or whatever. And so you get to see like an empty room, as it were, and then a sort of furnished room. So it gives you a sense as to how much stuff you'd need to bring with you to sort of make your room feel like home.
Nice. Yeah, the most like common things and the way colleges differ from each other would be like the architecture of the college, the location. Some people really want a central based college. Some people want a college that's a bit further out so they can have a separation of like their life during the day and then they can go home. Other colleges are west of Cambridge. Some colleges are right by the river and people really like that. Trinity Hall is one of them. Some of the colleges, the land space is huge and some of them are a bit smaller. Some colleges have a bigger year group per year and other colleges have a smaller year group. And you can find all of this kind of information on the University of Cambridge website and I imagine the college's website specifically. My recommendation is that once you do have a final shortlist of colleges that you're thinking of applying, do look at their specific website as well as the university-based website.
Yeah. And it's probably worth just mentioning something that you've already mentioned briefly. I mean, in case all of that sounds a bit intimidating, it's like, I've got to think about, the location, got to think about the size, got to think about this, got to think about that, and it all just seems too stressful. We should just emphasize, you don't have to pick a college when you apply to Cambridge. It's an optional thing. Most people do. But every year there's a significant number of people who apply and they submit what's called an open application. And what that means is they basically submit their application and they say, I want to study this particular subject, whether it's philosophy, whether it's English, whether it's engineering, whatever, at Cambridge. I don't mind which college I'm based at while I'm studying it. And then there's a little algorithm that's run that pretty much randomly allocates them to a particular college, and then that college will process their application. So if having looked at the websites or if having visited on an open day, you just think, this is all great, they all look amazing, I really, really don't mind, and I can't go through the whole process of actually picking one. You don't have to pick one. So it's not something to get super stressed about. If it becomes obvious that I'm interested in this college, fine, apply to it. But if it's just causing you sleepless nights, just don't worry. Just submit an application to study the course you want to study, because that's the most important thing. And we'll assign you to a college, and then that college will just assess your application.
Nice. I think a lot of people watching this will assume that, and this is the case, I imagine, for most universities, that they have one centralized admissions team to process all the applications and assess the applications and make the decisions. Could you explain to the viewers how each college? I mean, and that is the case. We do have a central admissions team. But can you explain to the viewers how there's an admissions team in each college that processes?
Yeah, exactly. As you say, there is a central university admissions team, and so when people apply, initially all the applications are kind of received by that body, but then they're kind of sent out to the individual colleges. So here at Trinity Hall, as director of admissions, I'd receive all the applications that my college has received in that given admissions round. And then we'll assess them, and we'll read the written work, and we'll look at their results in any admissions assessments, and we'll organize interviews and things like that. And the colleges do those things basically in the same way. So, again, it sometimes people really worry, if I apply to this college or that college, it'll have a massive impact on my chances of getting in. It won't have a massive impact on your chances of getting in, because we share information about the applicants between all the colleges. So I can see whether the applicants I've received here at Trinity Hall are particularly strong in relation to the gathered field for the university as a whole, or whether they're in relative terms a bit weaker. And also something that I think we should mention in this context is the winter pool that we've mentioned in a couple of podcasts. I think we've got a dedicated podcast about it, but just to remind people, that's our redistribution mechanism. And what it means is that you may apply to a particular college to study, a specific subject, but you may end up receiving an offer from a different college. So you might apply to college X, and yet you receive an offer from college Y. And it's about 20% of all the people who receive offers every year receive their offer through the winter pool. So that's just a sort of roundabout way of saying, don't get obsessively focused on any one of the particular colleges. If you end up thinking, that one looks particularly nice, fine, apply to it. But you may well receive an offer from a different college that will be equally nice. So don't as I say, don't stress too much about the college part of this. It's much more important to think really carefully about the course that you apply for, because if you're submitting a really competitive application for, say, engineering, just to pick that course, you're highly likely to receive an offer from one of the colleges. So it's the course that's important, and which college you end up at, you have less control over that, because you may receive an offer from a college that you hadn't really considered when you were applying.
Nice. And I think most students, like after a year or two with whatever college that they're in, look back and think, really struggle to imagine them being anywhere else. I think people become, especially by the end of the course, quite patriotic towards their college. That's right. Whether it was their first choice or they were pulled in through the winter pool, and we also have on the topic of how each college has their own admissions team and assesses the applications. We've done a really good podcast on assessing applications. So if you are interested in hearing us talk about that, it was a lengthy podcast, over an hour. Do check that out. It's a really good podcast on us going through the details of how we assess applications. The other thing that I wanted to also ask is, so most of the teaching is centralised, but the supervisions sometimes are from academics from your college and sometimes are from external academics. Can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to remind people, I mean, the supervisions, it's the jargon that we use to refer to the sort of small group teaching that we do. So there might be, one academic, one supervisor, and maybe 2 students, 2 supervisees, and they'll have prepared some work in advance of the supervision that's then discussed in detail during it. And again, we've described that in other podcasts and stuff. And yeah, often the people who are doing the teaching in that small group teaching environment, so the supervisors, will be academics based at the college where the student is also based. But that only happens if their expertise falls in those areas. So, I mean, it's not the case that, say, an academic in, I don't know, let's pick another subject like history, will have equal expertise across every single historical period. That's just not possible, right? No one's got that. So the academics based at the same college as the student will teach that student when the student is studying the historical periods that those academics have expertise in. And when the students are studying periods that are outside the sort of scope of the academics based at that college, they'll be taught by academics at other colleges. And it's really unusual for someone to go through their whole undergraduate course without being taught in supervisions by people at other colleges. It's really, really unusual for someone only to be taught by academics at their own college, which is a really nice part of the system. We try to pool our expertise so that the students are taught by the very best people. And it gives the students a chance to, visit other colleges and experience other colleges and meet academics from other colleges. So it helps to create a real sort of, larger community within the university. So colleges aren't like prisons. It's not that once you're in, you're trapped inside, you're not allowed out. It's just a social base, really. And as I say, the academic teaching may well involve people based at other colleges, which is I think a good thing.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons why we wanted to do podcasts with academics that teach in Trinity Hall, to show viewers, if they were to apply for this subject at Trinity Hall, who they might be being taught and what the supervision could be like through watching the podcast. And I think it was a really good point that you made about how the colleges introduce like a third social space. And I think so. Some students have this idea that the only thing that students will do at Cambridge is work, and it's just not true. And and the amount of social events and opportunities are just there's loads. There's going to be events from your college, events that are university wide, and events that are through your department. And these are all like avenues where you'll meet different types of people depending on whether it's in a lecture or on a college event, or for university sport. And it's a quite a dynamic lifestyle that is quite unique to Oxford and Cambridge. So with regards to applying to college, do you, if I remember correctly, you studied at Robinson?
Yeah, as an undergraduate.
How did you choose? Did you do an open application?
I ended up at Robinson through the pool. So
Okay.
I'm one of these people who went into the winter pool and ended up at Robinson through the winter pool.
Really?
Yeah.
No. What?
It happens. 20%. I said the number earlier. Yeah, 20%. I was one of the 20%.
Wow. I guess this, the viewers won't know this. Marcus is just a very, correct me if I'm wrong, a very successful academic, but across a variety of disciplines. So I'm not sure. Not sure if we can keep this in, because now I'm insinuating that if you're pooled, you're not as. Fair enough. I'm thrown off. I wasn't expecting that to be the answer.
Okay.
Do you have any recollection of like why that might have been?
It's because I hadn't really been able to take A levels because I'd this, I think I mentioned in an earlier podcast, I had to have a spinal fusion.
Yeah.
And so I had struggled to be physically capable of studying at school. And so my academic record was very patchy.
Okay.
So I think, in terms of my application, they saw I had a lot of potential, but through no fault of my own, very little of it had been realized when I applied.
Okay.
And in a sense, it shows how even back then, I mean, this was in like, the 18th century, but even back then, the mechanism for the university worked sufficiently well that someone who had a very poor existing track record, but had good potential, was able to be given an opportunity. And I'd say that in the intervening centuries since I applied, the system has become much better at allowing that to happen. I think I was lucky that people recognize my potential, and I think these days it depends a lot less on luck. I think the system has been improved in various ways so that we're better able to spot applicants who have had difficult circumstances but who do have potential that is yet to be realized.
So it's like a product of someone having good judgment in that, like managing the applications.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because the system now, there is like certain there are certain systemic things. I don't know, like procedures, but it also is also very much a lot of individuals taking a lot of time with the applications and showing good judgment as well. It's not completely procedural, if that makes sense.
No, that's right. And we have more information. I mean, stuff we've discussed in previous podcasts about the context in which someone has been studying and extenuating circumstances. Again, all of that back in the day was very haphazard. Whereas these days, there are lots of ways in which people can make sure we have a complete picture of what they've been having to deal with. So as I say, it just depends a lot less on luck than it used to, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, of course. To share how I chose my college, so obviously studied at Oxford. If you didn't know, I might have mentioned in the previous podcasts. I went to I applied twice. I didn't get in the first time. The first time, the college I applied to, Lady Margaret Hall, was a college that we went to a dinner during a summer school. Just liked the college, liked the grounds. Second time round, I didn't want to apply to the same college because it was a high chance I'd be interviewed by the same people. And on reflection, the college wasn't very central. So I don't think I would have found the distance a bit too far from the centre. Was at an open day, spent most of the day at the department actually, the chemistry department, spending more time talking to chemistry tutors and knowing about the course and applying and admissions tips, preparing for the application. And it was around 3 p.m. I realised I hadn't chosen a college.
I knew there was something I should have done.
I knew that I wanted something central. I kind of wanted a university experience where I felt like I was at a campus university, but also felt like I was in a city-based university, which a lot of the colleges provide because a lot of them are in the city centre. But when you're inside, very kind of like Harry Potter Diagon Alley kind of feeling. You're just in a completely different world. It's a lot more quieter than the bustling city outside. I just happened to be in a city centre outside of Trinity College. Looked inside. The accommodation was nice. They provided accommodation throughout all the years, and then I applied. So I didn't put too much thought into it, but I did have like a short list of priorities, like location. Did I like the space? The library? Could I enjoy living there? Did it feel,
which is important.
Did it feel homely?
Yeah.
For prospective students who are like trying to choose a college, if you were to apply college now and you're a prospective student, do you know which college you would choose?
I think I'd sort of I do what I encourage potential applicants to do. So it's a combination of things, various things we've mentioned already. Really, I think for instance, this is slightly unusual in Cambridge, but I don't cycle. I don't have a bike, and so for me, making sure that I was at a college that was, like everything was in really comfortable walking distance. So the faculty department was comfortable walking distance away, and stuff like that would be quite important. So I mean, that's probably how I'd narrow down the choice if I was doing it again these days. I'd sort of think of it in terms of, well, I know that my lectures will be here and blah blah blah, and therefore the colleges that are within a sort of reasonable walking radius of that might be and there's likely to be sort of, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5. And then, attending open days and visiting those colleges and getting a sense of it. Because even though obviously I'm based at one of the colleges these days and I sort of, I'm here, every day, I don't have a detailed knowledge of what the accommodation is like at every single other college. I might have seen some of it over the years, but, given any college, what is the accommodation like? So I think, before making a decision, if I were to apply again now, I genuinely spend a bit of time on one of the open days going to there's my short list of sort of 4 or 5 colleges and really looking at their facilities, especially facilities that I might be particularly interested in. So you can live and work in Cambridge at one of the colleges and it doesn't give you comprehensive knowledge of what all the other colleges have to offer. So I'd want to clarify that, just as any other applicant would want to clarify that.
Nice. Yes, I had a similar thing, and that I know a lot about our college, Trinity Hall, but I haven't don't know the other colleges and their accommodation in detail. I mean, it'd be hard to I personally, maybe it's because I work in Trinity Hall and I'm used to seeing the river every day, but I now can't. I really like a college by the river personally. A lot of people in other colleges will be more than happy to just see it once a day, walking across. And you normally, whether you're going to certain departments, you'll be walking around the city and seeing all of it all the time. But I think a college by the river, to that kind of nails it, brings it to only a handful of colleges. So the Johnson Trinity are next to us and they're much bigger. But one thing that I really that I discovered about when I was working here at Trinity Hall is our off-site accommodation. Whitfield makes our college a lot bigger than it seems. So the central site is quite is small comparative to the larger colleges, but a lot of colleges like ours have off-site accommodation where a college provides accommodation for the students, but the site is situated at a different place to where the college is. And I mean, I was big into sports. I say that in the past tense. I'm still big into. I'm big into sports. And all of the colleges in the city centre are a fair cycle away from the sports centre, whereas the colleges in West Cambridge are closer to the sports centre. But Whitfield, the offsite accommodation, Trinity Hall's offsite accommodation, is based in West Cambridge. So I could really see myself enjoying the lifestyle of being in West Cambridge, a short cycle from the sports centre. And it's a really nice area, West Cambridge. But also if I want to be in the city centre, I could, instead of working in West Cambridge, I could move my base to the library in Trinity Hall and kind of enjoy both the quieter side of Cambridge, but also the busier side.
And I think that's an important point, because again, people, when they're looking at the colleges, they might be tempted just to look at, especially for the older colleges, just to look at the sort of original site of the college. That's, as you say, right close to the centre and often, relatively small. But the colleges usually have much larger sites that are really close, like 6-7 minute walk away, or a sort of most are sort of, I don't know, 10-minute bike ride away. And that's where they have all their sports facilities and things like that. So make sure you're sort of fully aware of all the sites that any given college has, because it may be that most of the accommodation is really close to where your lectures will be, even though the really old part of the college on the other side is not quite as close. So yeah, it's worth spending a little bit of time, especially for the short list of colleges that you might have constructed, and really make sure you're aware of all their sites. And if you like what you've heard about Whitchfield, again, we have a virtual tour of that. So even if you're not able to get to Cambridge, you can walk all the way through the Whitchfield site and see whether Sam was telling the truth about it or not.
I mean, it's huge, loads of sports facilities. It's a very it's a beautiful, huge green space, and the accommodation is very new. But I didn't apply to Cambridge, so
it's not too late.
It's not.
Lifelong learning.
I think financially it is actually quite too late.
Yeah, well, maybe not.
Maybe not. Oh, I need to find the AT who brought you in.
I don't know if I can remember.
It's like one of those.
Yeah, I'd have to. I've probably got some letters. I'd dig it out. I can't remember. And you see, it may even have been at the point when colleges were starting to get admissions tutors, because that only really happened during the 90s. And so it may well have been that whoever was making those decisions was actually the senior tutor at the time. Not all colleges had admissions tutors. I just can't remember.
Would you have reapplied? Were you very bothered about if you got in or not?
Well, I mean, the thing was that
did you not submit the application to someone else?
I just didn't want to go to university. I just wasn't in it, and like I just give a shit. I mean, this is the truth. I really didn't, and I wanted to read and I wanted to study, but I didn't want to go to university to do that. And so in my mind, in my little fictional thing, I was just going to stay at home and just study, because then I could do things my way at my speed, and have complete control over it. And going to university just seemed to be a big faff with lots of sort of uprooting and everything, stuff that would get in the way of me doing what I wanted to do. So when I was told that I'd been pulled and that, I went for interviews at Robinson, because everyone used to interview after the winter pool then. But then when they sent me the offer letter, I was definitely going to turn it down. I was just going to say
really?
no, because I thought, oh great, I don't have to accept this. But it was just really like my parents and stuff who said, well, you got to think about this. Like, this is crazy. But no, I didn't want to go at all. So
how did you end up going?
Just really never quite making the decision to officially pull out.
So you slowly dragged into
it. Yeah. But even I remember, like the usual thing, being driven over. Like my dad drove me over, with all the stuff, and I really didn't want to go.
Oh wow,
it's funny.
I always saw it as it's quite so bad. As an exchange to be able to live a lifestyle, I'd have to have good enough grades, and that was
like a deal.
That was the deal.
Yeah.
And if I get these
can work
grades,
like that.
I also get paid. Because I came from in terms of on paper, like the most severe circumstances, so I was eligible for.
Absolutely. Which again, by the time you applied, that had all changed a lot. Like when I applied, I would have been in a similar kind of bracket. I mean, I would have got lots of flags if I applied today. There weren't any flags. It was just I don't know. I think someone from the college phoned someone at my school and had a chat about it, but that was just chance. That wasn't a formal part of the procedure. They just knew that the application I submitted was really strange. and they just wanted to understand a little bit more of the circumstances, but there was no formal mechanism to give that information. So if whoever it was at the college hadn't, I think it was the senior tutor actually, I think if he hadn't phoned the school, they wouldn't have found out more information about my situation, and therefore they probably would have reached a very different conclusion. And looking back, I mean, I had no idea at the time, but it was just sort of catastrophically haphazard. And as I was just lucky, but I'm sure there are people in my kind of situation who just didn't get a look in because a random informal phone call wasn't made, And these days it's not perfect, but it's better than that.
Yeah.
It's a lot better than that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's not as many phone calls make a difference these days, which is good.
Yeah. I mean, in a sense, we try and discourage that a bit, because give us all the information via the formal channels, and then we'll assess it formally rather than have a little chat. No, don't want a little chat. Just you've got all these ways to get that information to us. Do that. Yeah. Whereas back in the day, the phone calls were the only thing. Which is why some schools still assume that that's a good thing, because they were maybe making these calls in the 70s and 80s, like the same human beings. They're now reaching the end of their teaching careers, but they were doing that back in the day, and so they still assume it's the best way to sort of have a little chat. Whereas I'd rather it didn't happen these days because it doesn't need to.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's. Yeah, it's. I mean, if there's an opportunity for something to be transparent, it's better.
Let's make it transparent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll just do a quick end just so that we can finish this off. Well, thanks for watching. We do hope this podcast helps you for choosing your college. If you have any questions, do put them in the comments. Let us know, and we'll have a look through the comments and get back to you. We'll be doing more podcasts, so stay tuned, and we'll see you next time. Oh, fine, what a chaotic podcast.
It's good for you to be disconcerted at times, you see.
Yeah, no, so I don't just have to. It's not like, it's just another one. Something unexpected happens.
I'll make up some other lies about myself in the next one so that you.
Oh my goodness.
A pet elephant when I was an undergraduate. It'd be quite cool, actually.